Welcome back, and on this episode of Rednek Reviews, we're looking at another PC case. But not just any case, this is the Hyte Y70 Touch. This case is different from the other ones that you've seen on our channel. It's not just another mid-tower budget-friendly case. This is $360 of art. Oh, yeah, and that name, the Touch, it's not just a marketing gimmick. This case, it comes with a 4K LCD touchscreen built into the case. Now I've seen and I've even built PCs with an LCD panel inside to show off maybe the PC's speed or temperatures or even some cool artwork, but nothing with a touchscreen that's fully integrated and built into the case. This thing is truly one of a kind. Speaking of one of a kind, if you get one of these, you are gonna be part of an exclusive club, or at least for now, because this, despite having been released in October, is sold out through most of January. I was lucky enough to get one on the day that it released, so I can show you guys what it's all about. Before we actually start taking a look at the case, let's quickly review the packaging, and then we can get into the actual case review. Okay, so you can see here, it's pretty typical stuff. There's some big styrofoam end caps for the top and bottom, and then this plastic kind of sheathing set over the top. And you can see what I mean, the styrofoam really is not meant for multiple uses. After just one shipment, some of those pieces are already starting to break off, and there might even be some other cracks around. For a $360 case, you would hope that they would use something a little bit more sturdy to make sure that everything is very well protected. Some other things you can see they've done to protect it, they put a little cardboard sheet here to cover that touch panel, and then they use some foam on the inside to protect all that bracketry. Much like all their other cases, the Hyte Y70 only supports vertical mounting of your GPU. Now that we've talked about the packaging, let's take a look at the case itself. First, let's see if we can take a look at this touch panel. All right, so this has the same basic shape as what you would have seen from a Hyte Y60 or a Hyte Y40, with this kind of chamfered edge here. Instead of glass, it's got that touch panel. See, there's actually a bunch of information on the touch panel itself. 14.1 inch IPS panel, got the 4K resolution, 10-point multi-touch. Seems like not every single point within the matrix of the panel, but it's got zones for that touch panel. It supports DisplayPort 1.2, which should be plenty for anything you would want to put on there. And then, powered by Nexus, whatever. Nobody cares about that part. First impressions on the looks, it looks really cool. Having that screen on this panel just makes the most sense. You still have a clear view of all of your stuff from the side and from the front. You're not missing any of that internal view, but you get a really cool additional feature there. Moving to the inside of the case here, just like all of the other Hyte cases, you've got these built-in brackets and connectors for vertically mounting your GPU. Hyte branded, of course. One other thing that you'll see is on the interior, we've got this DisplayPort and USB-C port. The USB-C is likely providing power and some of the data transfer, and then the DisplayPort is going to be routed directly to your GPU for display. And then you can see here the DisplayPort actually comes right out the back, and it'll be able to plug right into your GPU. Super easy and convenient there. Other things that you'll notice in here, really good labeling here for your different motherboard sizes. It's something that most case manufacturers will actually stamp into the metal. They've gone with a screen printed, but it makes it very visible, and you can even see, maybe it's a little bit hard to see back there, but they've clearly labeled what A, M, and I stand for. A is for ATX, M is for micro ATX, and I is for mini ITX. So each one of these holes are clearly designated with which motherboard form factor it would be used for. Staying on this side of the case, you can see we've got lots of room for fans over here along the side, room for 2 to 3 fans on top, depending on if you have 140 millimeter, 120 millimeter, and then room for another 120 or 140 millimeter along the back for exhaust. On other cases like the Y40 and the Y60, there's also support for putting fans directly underneath the GPU. And actually the Y60 came with 2 fans pre-installed as intake fans for the GPU. This case, however, does not come with those pre-installed, but it does still support having 120 millimeter and 140 millimeter fans as intakes for the bottom, and even has an intake filter down there to keep your stuff nice and clean. While I'm sitting here looking at this as well, everything just has a really nice feel for it. I don't know if it's a combination on the finish, on all of the metal work, as well as just the overall design. It just feels really nice and high quality, which you would expect for a $360 case. Also, rather than having individual grommets for each pass-through, this is actually one giant molded piece, and the design of it actually looks really cool. I don't know that it necessarily works any better, but you could see a lot less of the grommet getting pulled through as you're pushing cables through during the build phase, because it's not just one little piece, it's one big mold for the whole thing. So that could be really useful. We'll find out after we've built in it. Moving to the back here, you can see the power supply is gonna mount right here to the bottom. You have drive bays that are externally accessible. It's super useful for pulling them out and for replacing them. You don't have to pull the back panel off or fight with internal cables. You can access them directly from the back. Let's look at the other side panel here. One thing that looks a little bit disappointing, there's no built-in cable ties or cable tie spots here along the side. There are some on the bottom, but it would have been nice to see those kind of all around here. Something like NZXT or Corsair are very good about doing are those built-in cable tie spots with maybe 2 spots to loop through so that you can keep it flat against this back panel rather than bunching up around a single point. You can see here we've got the regular I/O, we've got the USB 3.2, which is your USB-C, USB Gen 3, we've got your front panel connectors, HD audio connectors, SATA connector, and then a USB 2.0 port, which I'm guessing actually goes to that front screen. So let's just take a look here. Like we thought earlier, that USB-C is providing both power via this SATA connector, and this USB 2 is going to transfer data back and forth for those touch applications. They did a really good job integrating that screen. You've got internal connectors for data and power delivery, very sleek design for this display port with a nice short cable that's going to go to your GPU. It's going to look really, really good. One other feature that seems to be unique to the Hyte cases, there's a lot of room down below for cable management. Rather than having to run everything up and down around here in the case, you can actually run some stuff underneath this tray to various components within your computer. That can help a ton with cable management and just keeping everything looking nice and clean. All right, well, I think that's about as much as we're gonna learn from this case until we build in it. So let's build a computer inside of this, and then we'll go through our final thoughts on the case. Okay, now that we've built a computer in here, let's do a final walkthrough of how it was to build in, and then we'll talk about that awesome screen. So, starting at the back, these bottom channels for the cable management were great. They came with these cable ties pre-assembled in there. Is super convenient for running all of your cables down towards the bottom of your motherboard, as well as if you have some extra cable length, perfect for holding all of that down and making it look really tidy. In addition, there's a bunch of tie down spots all throughout here. I was able to utilize all of those with some more cable ties. Realistically with this PC, you shouldn't even have to use any zip ties. Sometimes with other cases, you might have to do that just because there's not enough space to use a Velcro type cable tie. But on this case, that wasn't a problem at all. Additionally, it supports even really large power supplies. This is a 1200 watt power supply from Be Quiet. And as you can see, plenty of room for the power supply, as well as routing the cables in here without it being too scrunched up. Next, the drive bays. These are actually really convenient. The nice open back made it super easy to plug everything in, and it's super accessible if you ever need to pull a drive out. You just undo your cables right there, and then you've got 2 thumb screws to pull it right out. Super convenient, very easy to install. Well done. Okay, that's enough of the backside. Let's look at the front. And on the front, we're gonna start with one of the actual only complaints I have about the inside of this case, and that is those pass-throughs. By themselves, they look great. They didn't get messed up while pulling cables through, even if you have to kind of reef on it and rub against them quite a bit. But in my opinion, they really just don't do a good enough job of hiding the cables as they're going through the pass-through, because it doesn't have a way of really having cables kind of go through it and then forming around them. It's just a big open cavity. So some of the cables are actually kind of visible through the pass-throughs, and I don't really like that very much. Back to the good stuff. Up on top, we were easily able to fit a 360mm radiator in several different configurations, whether you want the fans on top or the bottom, or the radiator tubes facing one way or the other. This is something that shouldn't be taken for granted, because if you had a Hyte Y70 case, mounting a 360mm radiator was actually pretty difficult, and there was pretty much only one way you could do it. So I'm really glad they fixed that in this design. Now looking at the bottom, there's support for 2 140mm fans or 3 120mm fans. It's got an easily removable bracket, so you can pre-mount those fans and then just clip it right into the bottom of the case. So you have these nice hidden fans providing fresh air right to your GPU. And the last thing before we get into the screen is all of these panels fit in really nicely with no fasteners whatsoever. All they do is just slide into place and pop in just like that. They don't feel overly loose, and they come in and out super easily. Very, very nice. Now let's move on to this 4K touchscreen that Hyte integrated in here. Well, you could use this as just a regular monitor because it does just have a DisplayPort cable into your graphics card. Hyte actually partnered up with a company called Nexus to make a bespoke software just for this screen. The software was quick to download, super easy and intuitive to set up, very clear instructions on how to configure everything. They even went so far as to give you some tips on the settings that may cause you to lose some FPS in game and bog down your system a little bit, which is super helpful for a lot of end users who might not be aware on this monitor could cost them FPS in their game. So within about 2 minutes of having installed the app, we were able to configure it and get the panel to look like you see here. This is not the stock configuration. We added our own logo, changed the look of the clock, added in some data from our CPU and GPU. We got our utilization, the power from the GPU, and then the temperatures of each, even the weather down there. But we did that all on our main monitors. Let's see what it feels like to actually use the touchscreen on here. I'm not sure what all we can do, so let's just touch something. Interesting, so you can play Tetris, which they called the block game. I mean, the responsiveness is pretty nice. I was never great at playing Tetris, but looks like they got some other cool added controls, like you can adjust the screen brightness, you can mess with your microphone audio, you can mess with your overall system audio, turn your Wi-Fi and Bluetooth on and off, even go into airplane mode. Pretty cool feature there. And close that out, get back to the home screen. You can add some other widgets in here and even look at some extra stuff. Got all of your emojis. Look at that, you even got a calculator. 69 times 96, 6,624. It's a very useful calculation. So yeah, you've got your home screen here. You can add in some shortcuts for other things to open up. And they've also got a generic list of things on here of what the CPU is doing, the GPU, how much of the RAM is being used. Yes, there are 128 gigabytes currently installed in this, just the C drive, but there's also, this one also has extra drive, so it looks like you could adjust that. Lighting, media, you got your time on there again. Really, really cool. It's not quite as perfect and seamless as operating maybe your cell phone, but for a touchscreen that's being operated off of like a third-party software and not directly from Microsoft, I mean, this thing's pretty cool. So all in all, I'm gonna have to give this thing a 9.5 out of 10. You might think that the price is a little too high at $360. Someone actually made a kit to add a screen similar to this on the Hyte Y70 case, and those were costing $150 by themselves. So with that in mind, you call this a $200 case plus a $150 screen kit that's fully integrated into it, you're getting even better value for money than you would be buying the Hyte Y60 and upgrading it yourself. Not to mention, you can easily fit even the largest of 4090 GPUs in here. I don't know that if it's patented or not. Having these hidden bottom intake fans is one of the best innovations I've seen in quite a while. Having those bottom fans, in my opinion, just kind of distracts from the aesthetics of a nice case. So having them down there just completely hidden away looks amazing, and it really features this GPU, especially with it vertically mounted. So go buy yours today. You can get it just about anywhere, except for the fact that it's completely sold out, at least through January. See you next time.